What's up, everybody? League night. We're back. I'm Matt Graham. I'm one of your hosts. We're joined by Jamie Thomas.
Looks like I'm the cheddar in this Graham and cheese sandwich.
Welcome, man. That was excellent. Josh Graham also here. How's it going?
Hey, I'm glad to be invited back. I can't wait to talk more about disc golf.
That's right. We do that on this show. We talk about disc golf. We're here to talk about some really, I think, spectacular things. Let's get into the three-headed recap. Josh, take it away.
All right, so look, it's just our second Pro Tour event of the season. We know that the excitement continues to build, right? We see how the stories are beginning to take shape. Look, we're still in the infancy of the season, but if I'm going to play on that metaphor, we're kind of getting closer to the toddler stage, right? Look, we can finally start to see the emergence of stories that just might mean something as the season progresses. Like we're asking ourselves, right? When I'm seeing what's happening, is this something we've seen before or is this something brand new? That's a part of what we love. Look, after LVC, the top talent of our sport headed 300 miles south and 1,000 miles east and landed themselves in Waco, Texas. This is home of the famed Brazos Park East disc golf course, more affectionately nicknamed the Beast. And for good reason, right? Look, this course relatively short compared to modern course tour standards that we're seeing today, but it offers a dynamic challenge. It balances tight wooded shots, fairways, then more open holes with OB and water carries. Never mind weather, right? This past weekend, look, it was one course over 3 days, but it played like three entirely different courses. Day one, we saw this very windy with frigid temperatures, especially for Texas. That was a physical and a mental challenge. Day two was calm and a bit warmer. And then we go to day three, and what happens? The holes play entirely different because the wind reverses course. So it offered, classic Texas disc golf. Coming into this event in FPO, we wanted to watch carefully, right? Who was going to match their LVC performances, or would anybody bounce back? Would the Europeans continue to assert themselves more than they did? And how about returning winner Kona Panis from last year, who really had an impressive win? In MPO, this was the first time seeing Paul McBeth back on the official tour. There was a lot of curiosity, a lot of talk last week about Gannon Burr. And just like in FPO, we were curious to see who would bounce back after an underwhelming performance in Vegas. And here we are. We're going to talk about it. So Jamie, let's look at what you have to share from FPO this past weekend.
Well, in FPO, it was a little bit of the same, a little bit different. Definitely a windy final round to get started. Evelina Salonen, your leader. She's going to find trouble early. OB off the tee. Second shot here, and it would become emblematic of her day. OB again for Salonen. She's 7 over through the front nine. That would quickly clear the way for Kristen Tatar to set the pace. Here she is on hole number 5, just asking it to hang on a little bit. Up the right side, finds the top shelf. That's going to be for a birdie. It looked good for her, but don't forget about Valerie Mondahano. The death putt on 7, count it. That would be 4 in a row, starting with that. Onto the back nine, pressure's up, wind is up, Tatar is up, and down right here, pins the upshot to get a stroke back on Mondahano. She would find trouble off the 17th, which leaves Valerie in position to throw the shot of the tournament. Left to right wind, down the elevated slope, OB surrounding, and you would think this girl has won every tour event for the last 5 years the way she threw that shot. Tatar found out of bounds, Mondahano found the birdie, and she walks into 18 suddenly with a 4-stroke advantage. All she has to do is get across the water here on the par 4, and her first ever disc golf pro tour victory is in the books. There she does it. Up and down for Valerie Mondahano. She wins in Waco, and afterwards she shared an emotional dedication.
I felt a lot of emotions. I feel like I want to tear up. I just want to dedicate this win to my grandfather. He passed away on New Year's, and he was like my father. He raised me so close to him, and he never got to see me win. So I told myself I had to win this year. So this is for you, Dad.
Wow. Jumping over into the MPO, Paul McBeth circles edge putt for 7 birdies in a row is good. Moving over to hole 17, Luke Humphries setting up his drive with a result that puts him in a true battle with Chris Dickerson. Fantastic drive. Hole 17 setting up for so much drama with Chris Dickerson teeing off following that. And the result, not what he wanted to see. Nobody wanted to see it. Chris Dickerson out of bounds. So this gives Humphrey the second shot on 17 to seal second place. His drive, his upshot, amazing. All right, Paul McBeth, hole 17, throws his approach on the tiny, I say tiny, but the peninsula it's a tough one to land. Out of bounds. Now the out of bounds comes off of those walls just a bit. He found it. He lays up quickly to take the bogey, and he sees second stroke swing to Humphries, 2 back with 1 to play. Humphries acts like he's been there before, and he kind of has. We're going to talk about that later. Humphries tees on 18. He just does the layup. He doesn't have the arm or even maybe the confidence above and beyond all of that. So McBeth, being the chess player that he is, steps up. He also decides to lay up. I think it's a smart play. Let's see how it played out here. After everybody pitches up, you can see McBeth here laying up wisely, the chess player that he is, the experience to circle 2. McBeth taps in, celebrates his first Disc Golf Pro Tour win of the season. Let's check in with him, what he said after the round.
I think putting, I was extremely satisfied with this week. Had all the confidence in the world, especially circle 1. Circle 2 can use a little work, but I got a long year ahead of me to work on that. So felt great this week. Was able to tie Luke and Nick after that first round, so jump in the lead early and kind of just stay there. So.
How satisfied are you with the crowds that have come out to come watch?
It's incredible. I think these ticket sales have really changed the sport, because people are buying tickets and they're showing up from beginning to the end because they've invested into it. So I'm noticing that, where they'll come watch in the morning, watch the women play, and then they'll go to lunch and then they'll show up out here and watch the open card, and it's incredible. I mean, it's record setting for disc golf.
That's right. It is record setting for disc golf. Paul set that up so nicely. Now, everybody, this is a live show, and live shows, live sports in general, bring us a lot of fun. I think we may be lined up here actually in a way that's working out, but Josh had to drop out for a bit. Let's go ahead. Jamie, give me your quick reaction to Paul McBeth closing out that victory there.
Well, I think Josh just couldn't handle the awesomeness that is 17. I mean, how many years now has that hole been so consequential? Josh, we got more to talk about, though, so stick around, dude.
Funny.
That's right. Let's get into our 2 minutes. All right, let's put the topics up. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it, everybody. We're early in the season, but what are some trends that you see developing for this year? Early trends. I'm going to give this one to Josh.
All right. So I'm going to stick around for any debate around disc golf. I promise you that. So look, early trends, it's almost too early. Now, granted, 2 events, you do a little bit of math. We're about 13% of the way through the season. How about that, Jamie? I can do some division. Hey. So, but the point is this is actually enough to start to get a feel, right? Now, what actually happens is why we'll stay tuned in the sport. Look, but in MPO, I'm not going to surprise anybody. I realize it's actually only 1 event for this person, but Paul McBeth missed the first tour event, played an A tier between, and came out and he put his stamp on it and said, hey, everybody, like, I'm still here. Not that anybody thought he left. He won USDGC last fall. I think he's on point. I'm going to expect more of the same. So, of course, you're not surprised. And in FPO, to be brief, I expect more of Kristen Tatar being consistent. I mentioned this last week. None of this peaks and valleys, well-rounded. And then Katrina playing with like a renewed vigor, right? A new sponsor. She seems happy, relaxed. I think that is a big thing for Katrina, and I expect to see her continue to perform well going forward.
Early trends this year for me, I'm going to go out on a limb here and we'll see how this plays out. I think circle 2 putting is going to be more critical this year than in any year in the past. One reason for that is we're obviously seeing more and more talented players come up, especially through the middle of the pack. We talk about parity quite a bit in disc golf media generally over the last few years, but also when we talk about course design. As course design continues to elevate, as we find new venues to challenge these top tier players, I see a lot of the more modern designs continuing to challenge players off of the tee, but the greens are still kind of an area that are more or less the same. You could do a little bit of guarded greens, you can do a little bit of inside the circle OB or hazards, things like that. But as we continue to challenge the players off the tee for both divisions, MPO and FPO, I think the people that can really start to excel from Circle 2 are the people that are going to make the biggest moves up that leaderboard.
That's right. And if you asked me, what are some trends that I'm seeing this early in the season? It's called sitting on the couch watching Disc Golf Network. It's something I'm like, I'm coming up, oh, is it time to watch disc golf? It's happening every weekend now. Stop by and check it out. Okay. Las Vegas Challenge has happened. Waco has happened. Here is a list of players for you that did not place top 10. I don't know. Let's go bigger than that. Missed the cut at LVC. Missed the cut. But they made top 10 at Waco. Here's the names: Blumroos, Finley, Clemens, Gossage, LaVisca. So we have Texas State's coming up. Who's going to do best there? But let's ask this question. Do you see and expect this type of trend for this year? Or are things going to smooth out? Jamie, take it.
I kind of see this roller coasters continuing to ride. I mean, let's see how it goes. I think it's going to be harder to place in the top 10 consistently. When you interview the players, that's a common point that they'll bring up in press conferences. They'll say, I want to finish top 10s, except for those that are saying they want to win everything. But top 10, common goal, right? Harder than ever to do right now because, one, you could say that, oh, if you miss the cut at Vegas and you make the top 10 at Waco, we could blame that on the courses. Sure, we could blame that on the courses, but we could also put it in the factor of who was working on certain elements of their game in the offseason, and maybe it didn't work out in Vegas. They're focusing too much on that, not thinking about the overall game plan of the 4 rounds, 3 courses. Like you said, Josh, this event felt like 3 courses, even though it was 3 rounds on a single course. So I think the micro adjustments that are going to be required to play the game at this level going forward are going to mean that the roller coaster's open for business.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree with some of that sentiment, but add a little bit, right? So I do think, as this is similar to what you said, as the field deepens, right? And when I say deepen, I don't mean just depth, but also quality, right? In other words, it becomes more packed towards the top, which means all it takes is kind of one off round. Next thing you know, you find yourself trying to crawl out of a hole. And in the past, I think that could be smoothed over a little bit more than it can now. And so to have somebody entirely miss a cut, and then the next week show up in the top 10, and then at a future event miss the cut again, I will not be surprised. I think that's going to continue. That trend will continue to happen, by the way, in both MPO and FPO. But here's the twist. Think about what I just said about what I expect to see going forward with like McBeth. I do think both in MPO and FPO, you're still going to have your top 2 to 3, and I don't think much more than that, who are going to still show that they're separating themselves, and they will not bounce around. And so the question is, who's going to make that stake, right? Who's going to be the one to say, look, it's 2 events, but this isn't going to continue to happen. So it'll be interesting.
These events set it up so we have something to talk about. And as disc golfers do, we like to jump on something and say it's going to happen. I made that take last week. Gannon Buhr performed okay, but not, he's not winning out like some people predicted. Let's go ahead and get into topic number 3. Katrina Allen's second round was 921 rated. You may like ratings, take them or leave them, but here's the deal. She bounced back with a course record, shooting 1,023 rated. That's more than 100 points higher. If we're using Katrina as an example, what does a bounce back like that signal for a player like her? Let's go ahead and give this one to let's go to Josh.
Okay, so there's a couple ways to slice this. I'm going to actually take it a little different angle and say, look, if you see somebody that you know has the potential to throw, on average, a highly rated round. In other words, you're saying their ceiling is high because they've demonstrated that. And then you see them throw an incredibly low round and find themselves in the pack. As a fan, you ready? So here's a tip. If you're out there following live, go follow that person. You know why? It gives them really a sense of freedom to just go for everything. And that creates some exciting golf. And so when you see somebody like Katrina, who really should be right on the podium at any given event, throw such a poorly rated round, the next round, expect some fireworks, which is exactly what we got. And so I think that's really exciting to see that. I think it does tell us a little bit more about players' resiliency. Jamie, I'm curious what you have to take from that angle.
Yeah, resilience is a great word to look at right there. I think Katrina, first of all, we have to put out this stat there. That's the highest ratings jump between 2 rounds when the second round is rated over 1,000. You know who has the second place in that category?
No, I do
Katrina
not.
Allen.
Yeah.
Katrina Allen from the 2019 Green Mountain Championship. She had a 100-point bounce back from the second to the third round at that event. The big thing is that, like you said, Josh, it frees the player up. Kayla Viska mentioned this. When he missed that cash streak in Vegas by not making the cut, he went to the Memorial and just played with no pressure on his shoulders. So it shows you what the athlete is really capable of, but it also says a lot about their confidence level, that they can have a short-term memory, which is great for a long-term career, and find a way to not let the mistakes of the day beat them up and keep them out of it. I mean, Katrina shot the bad round on the easiest of the 3 days at Waco, still found a way to course record and make the podium.
That's right. In fact, one of the things that started when live disc golf began was players noticing when the live coverage cameras would come over to their cards and they'd say, I must be doing good. And that's the case here with Katrina in that situation. Moving into our fourth topic, our final topic here. Valerie Mandujano and Luke Humphries have more in common than just playing well this weekend. If that's the first you've seen of them, you've missed out, because they both have amateur major titles, world titles included. Do you see that experience translating more effectively to the pro scene? Is this going to happen more often? Is that what we're going to see? Jamie, take it.
Ooh, this is a tricky one, because I think long-term the answer is obviously yes. I mean, we see precedent in other sports. You have college leagues, you have minor leagues, you have farm teams, all of that stuff. There's a reason that these sports need the infrastructure, and the more people get into them, that's why the level can continue to go up and up and up. And by the way, that's what makes the debates of best of all time. Who's the best 5-time women's world champ? Who's better, Paul or Kenny? Like, these are at the heart, or this is what drives the heart of those debates, is building this infrastructure. However, Valerie's majors from when she was a junior come in 2014, 15, and 16. Luke Humphries' amateur world title comes in 2018. So that tells me that there's still quite a bit of refining of the game that you have to get to if you want to play with the likes of Paige, Katrina, Paul, Ricky, Eagle, all of those people week in and week out on tour. It's a great start, but there's still lessons to be learned.
Yeah, for most players, I think that is going to have to be the avenue, is getting experience, which is one of the key components to winning on the tour, right? Getting that experience out of the way, and the best place to do that, and it's still a highly competitive environment, is coming up through the AM Rakes. Plus, it's going to get harder to get on the pro tour. You're going to have to start earning your way onto the pro tour. So it's not going to be as simple as the old fashioned way where you signed up to be a pro and then registered an event because there were open slots. So you're going to actually have to explore other avenues. And I think climbing the AM ranks is going to be a perfect place to do it. And so for most people, the answer to this question is yes. However, your future superstars are not going to go that route. That's my take. What's going to happen is they're going to pop up as juniors and say, why would I do that when I can come out and win on the pro tour almost immediately? And so I think your superstars are just going to show up because they can. I think everybody else is going to have to work their way into it.
All right, that wraps up 2 minutes. Good job, guys. Let's go ahead and move into our next segment. What do you make of this? And starting out, I want to bring up Waco. It spotlights the unproven talent. Now, if we look back to previous years, you will see some names, and I'm going to go back to Gannon Burr again, finding himself on a lead card. Nobody really knew about him in the pro scene yet. This year, you see a player, Nicholas Carl, never finishing better than 40th place at a pro tour event and finding himself on the lead card, tied with Paul McBeth, tied with Luke Humphries for the hot round. You have Luke Humphries finding himself in this situation, almost being able to pull off the win, which would have been I think a major upset, even though Luke is performing well at this point in his career. Kona has her first victory at Waco. Colton Montgomery, first win at Waco, and you don't see them finishing podium, not nearly enough to consider it consistency. You also have now Valerie Mandujano. There's a whole bunch of other names. Waco seems to put the spotlight on the unproven talent. They're able to do something and shine. What do you guys make of that? Jamie, react.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting too, because Waco, like you said, I'm pretty sure we did this graphic in the broadcast this weekend. The lower rated tour players have a chance here. And Josh alluded to this at the beginning of the show. He was talking about the length of the course. I think it's going to be the second shortest course on tour after we get past Texas State's. It's obviously only through 2 events, the shortest course we've seen so far. But the technicality and the scoreability highlight things that you have to get good at as you make that progression, like we were just talking about, from the amateur competitive ranks into the pro ranks. I think the difference between a 1,000 rated player and a 1040 rated player, as an example, both of those players are extremely accurate. Both of those players are more than adequate putters. The difference is accuracy at distance. Waco kind of eases up on that a little bit, and it allows you to kind of show off some of those other skills. Whereas like if you get out on a 10, 11,000 foot layout, well, I mean, is anybody as accurate at distance as somebody like Eagle McMahon, for example? Maybe Calvin Heimberg from what we saw at All-Star? You start to play in a different league. Waco, not quite.
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, make no mistake that this course does not offer the same kind of elite level challenge that some of the other courses does. But let me be clear, that is not a bad thing. I actually think we want this variety, right? And so when I say the level of challenge, we're talking about pure length, right? Mixed with complexity. But this is what we want, right? We want some diversity of the courses on the tour to showcase different types of skill sets. This type of course allows potentially unproven talent to show you that, hey, when you level certain types of things on a course, now I can compete. So I love it, but I think it is clearly because of the course. But for me, give it to me every year. But let's mix in some variety, which is what we're going to get.
All right, I got one for you guys. Got something for you to make something of. Paul McBeth has won his 16th Disc Golf Pro Tour event. That, of course, leads all competitors. 48 starts since the Pro Tour's inception in 2016 for McBeast. That's a 33% win rate. It's higher than Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods hadn't played well in the Disc Golf Pro Tour. He hadn't won yet. No, I'm kidding. We looked up Tiger Woods' win percentage on the PGA Tour. It's about 23% for reference. So maybe some problems in the direct apples to apples comparison there. But Matt, I'm going to start with you. What do you make of it? Paul wins a third of the time that he starts.
Well, I think it's a little bit outrageous to compare him to Tiger Woods. That is literally the most clutch and epic athlete. Athlete may be pushing a little far for golf, but man, Tiger Woods just doing miraculous things. Paul McBeth is on his way. The percentage is there, but I don't know if the competition is there. It's on its way. But congratulations to Paul. There's no way around it. Hearing the number of the stats coming out this weekend, his rounds over 1,070 rated or 161 times. 160. Like, that is mind blowing. So congratulations to him. The 33% win it's totally something he's deserved. That's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add except to say something we already knew. You already heard me reference it. Paul is really good. No surprise there. I think it does tell you a little bit about the mix of the competition, which does not discredit Paul's talent. In fact, it probably emphasizes like, hey, he's the one who's doing it. I think it will become harder to win. I keep referencing that. So I think, I would not expect Paul to win 33% of the tour events over the next 5 years, not because Paul will decline, but because the difficulty to do so, will become more increasingly evident. But hey, it's worth noting several percentage points, which is quite a bit. But behind that, you've got Ricky and Eagle. And then it really dips off. So the question is, who's going to try to push McBeth to get into those same ranks? I love it. All right. So we're going to move on to something I've got. So look, stats. Yeah, you see some popping up on the screen. In and of themselves, they're objective, right? They're facts, they're just numbers. But how we interpret them and ultimately, look, how we apply them or how we kind of identify meaning out of them is what matters. So in this case, look at stats from this past weekend. Evelina, she was literally killing the field on the tee to green stats. I mean, she gained 23 strokes in the tee to green stats, or ability to drive, right? Listen to this. She beat the next best performer in that stat by over 9 strokes. And you know who that person was? It was the winner of the event, Valerie. Not even close. So she's beating the winner of the event by over 9 strokes over that tournament in tee to green. And then contrast it with the gained putting, right, where she lost nearly 14 strokes on the field. And listen to this, she lost over 19 strokes to Valerie. Now, I realize, obviously, this is just a simple math problem, right? You calculate all that out and see that she lost the event by 10 strokes, right? Evelina did. The final round itself was a bit more balanced across those stats, right? Not quite as drastic. And look, I'm not picking specifically on Evelina here. In fact, there are many players who have faced similar challenges at points in their career. This happens to be the one that we're seeing now. And to be honest, I'm equally as impressed. This is not all about putting, but that she could outdrive the entire FBO field by that much. That's crazy. And lastly, look, not as drastic, but this is where I'm curious to get a reaction, is we actually do see similar dichotomy also happening in the MPO ranks, not as standing out. But when you look at Calvin Heimberg this past weekend, drove well, didn't putt so well against the field. And even Bradley Williams, right? He's kind of an evergreen Texas favorite. Drove well, didn't putt so well. So Matt, Jamie, yeah, what do you make of this?
I think that you're right. There's not much.
That's why I said stats are objective.
Hot take.
Yeah.
Stats are objective, but do they mean anything? Should players focus on driving or putting, or is a balanced game where it's at?
I think a balanced game is where it's at. And I hate to go back. I hate to go back to Paul McBeth, but Waco, we just talked about the unproven player being able to stand out. And that's partly due to the fact that the course is shorter. It is technical, but it's shorter. But Paul stands out because he has a very well-rounded game. He's able to putt, and when you see his putts on, he's doing well, but he's also a very accurate player. So when you have them combined, I think we just need to have a well-rounded player. Jamie, what are your take?
Yeah, and it's a good point to Paul McBeth. I think, is he only the second 2-time winner of Waco on the Pro Tour? I'm doing that off the top of my head, but I think it's Coling in 17 and 18, and everybody else. And, a lot of the times we see new winners. So the best can win anywhere on all different styles, of course. But I think, the biggest thing that I can say is a positive for Evelina, because there's no way around it. And as a Finn, and all the Finns that I know would kind of address this the same way and just say, you know what, that was bad. Just call a spade a spade. That just wasn't good on the putting green. But she still managed to keep that strokes gain off the tee really, really high. So speaking to that confidence that she can still get up there, she knows what she's doing. She hasn't lost her game. Just a case of the yips. The problem may be physical. The solution is mental. And she's still doing pretty well in these point standings that you're seeing scroll across the bottom there. So she'll be just fine long term.
Yeah, look, it's hard to be the top of any particular stat and win when all you're focused on is one area. Not saying Evelina is, but for a player, you've got to be well-rounded. I think Paul was ranked first in a couple stats this weekend, including finishing place. But I don't think in strokes gained, tee to green, or putting that Paul was ranked number 1. So a balanced approach. Of course, you've got to be incredibly good at both to win. But I think that's where it's at. And I know it's probably an obvious statement, but boy, sometimes those stats are really eye-popping.
Hey, sometimes the eye test will tell you more about the conditions than the numbers will. Sometimes. Our friends at Statmando might disagree. Shout out to them for all these great numbers, by the way. Last one we're going to do today, Luke Humphries is your tour points leader through 2 events in the 2022 season. Luke Humphries does not have a Disc Golf Pro Tour victory to his name. I can't think of a time where this has happened before. I tried to go back and look. It's going to take a little longer to compute all that out and verify it. But for the sake of this argument, this is new ground for us, where we have somebody who has placed so very well. Luke, in his career before 2022, had 1 top 10 finish on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Through 2 events this very season, he has 2 top 5s. Josh, what do you make of that?
Yeah, so I realize this is a little funny, but do a little quick math, right? This would be like entering the Boston Marathon, and 3.5 miles in, you look up and say, who is that person winning the race? Okay. And by the way, I'm not joking. Do the math. 3.5 miles into a marathon is how far we are into the Pro Tour this season. Okay. Here's the point. It's awesome, but it's a unique set of circumstances. to find yourself in that situation. The question is do a little more calculations and see how long you can maintain that without a win. The Pro Tour points are stacked so heavy on wins that when you start bringing in 2, 3, 4 events, obviously if Luke can finish in second place over and over again, then he'll be at the top and continue to be a leader. But we talked earlier about bouncing up and down the leaderboard. The question is, can Luke sustain that? I think Luke is showing incredible signs of being able to perform well. I hope that's the case. I doubt he'll maintain that lead because the competition is going to continue to ratchet up.
Yeah, I just feel like the beginning of the season sets it up for these storylines. If I had to make my pick and my take, I'm going to say that he doesn't maintain this. I see other players who are showing a lot of good signs of being able to do that, moving up slowly. But I think Luke Humphries, while he's doing great, I don't think he's going to maintain it. All right. That brings us to our recap here, or not recap, look ahead to the Belton, the Open. Is it? How do I say that? Why do I always mess it up, Jamie? Give it to me.
The Open at Belton. It's the first Silver Series of the event this season on the Pro Tour. It's happening in Belton, Texas this weekend. If you're subscribed to the Disc Golf Network, shout out to you for watching on there. You're going to get final round coverage live. Start times to be determined. Good thing we don't have to worry about daylight savings time messing anybody up this week. Yeah. So we're all good. You got plenty of daylight after it ends too to get back out there, practice your putting.
Hey, and albeit it's a Silver Series event, but there are a lot of big names there. So definitely tune in, watch the leaderboard. I'm sure we'll still be excited to talk about it.
As I said, that's the trend that is happening with me. I am finding myself comfortable on the couch watching Disc Golf Network. I want to say this past weekend, my good buddy, Nicholas Carl, I introduced him to disc golf about 8 years ago. He picked up a disc, said, "What is this?" Threw it. Took him a little while. He started to beat me. Now he's on the tour. He ties Paul McBeth, shoots the ties for the hot round, guys. Yeah, I can see.
Way to go, Nick.
Yeah,
great job.
Way to go, Nick. And I just want to say this. Root on your favorite players. Send messages to all the players that you find interesting. Give them the love. Find somebody local. Tell them they're doing great. Bring it to your home course. Everybody, until next time, we'll see you out there.